5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to day, 18 of National Podcast Post Month here on the Odd Data Podcast. I am your host, the seriously fucking tired Adam Higgins, the Odd Dad out. And I have a special treat for you today. I have a guest, as promised. And so, without further ado, because I'm just terrible at intros, let's get on with it. Great intro there, huh?
Yeah.
So, I would like to introduce my second real, not sitting on my kitchen table guest. It is Derek from the Sometimes Geek Podcast and Rolling Misadventures, which I will say I'm gonna say I haven't listened to that one because I'm just not a D&D type person. But
totally fair.
I've heard good things.
Yeah, totally fair. If you get a chance, I will say, and this isn't just, to promote myself on it and say, no, definitely go listen to my shit. It definitely leans more into the audio drama than it does the tabletop.
Yeah. I tried listening to, I don't know if you're familiar with Sans Pants Radio and some of their shows, but they do have one D&D show. It's called D&D is for Nerds. And I tried listening to it, and it's one of those and I think I've tried listening to Dungeons and Dragons and a few others. And I just can't get into it. And that's the thing is I'm totally into fantasy stuff. And for me, the world of D&D stuff, it works for me. I get it. The wizards and dragons and the adventures and all of the fantasy elements, I'm totally into that. My video game world is in fantasy stuff. It's Zelda and Skyrim and those sort of games. I hate first-person shooters and that kind of stuff. I'm all about the fantasy stuff. But for some reason, I've just never been able to get into D&D as a gaming thing. But I don't know.
So what it was for me, because I tried to listen to a bunch of real plays when I first started listening to podcasts, which granted, I started recording before I started listening to a bunch. But the one that really got me hooked was the Adventure Zone. And the main reason was that, they had the battles and the mechanics in it. They did it in a way where it didn't really matter. It didn't take away from the story. And then I realized that was the problem I had with a lot of the real play D&D style podcasts. Just sitting and listening to someone do combat for a half hour or look up rules and things like that just wasn't entertaining to me. And this is coming from someone who plays D&D.
Oh yeah, that sounds like it'd be really tedious.
So with Rolling Misadventures, I decided, I wasn't going to use Dungeons and Dragons. Instead, we use a system called Fiasco, which is very, very minimal on the rules. The dice are just there to help set up your characters and to tilt your story midway through. That's it. And so
we came up to a situation where, where are the dice again?
Pretty much, yeah. It's to set up your characters because it is a dice pool, what they call a draft system, not to get super nerdy technical on it. But basically, you roll the dice together and you can build your relationships with each other off of a sheet. So if someone takes the only 2, you can't use that too. So it kind of forces you to be a little creative with setting up these relationships and then ultimately kind of setting up the overall story arc that you're going to go for. The rest of it is just us making it up on the fly, bullshitting our way through it.
Kind of like what I do here every week.
Pretty much, yeah. I had somebody from another show the other day. He sent me a message I just listened to the newest episode, which is our superhero-based travesty. I don't even know what genre of superhero it would be. But he was like, oh yeah, I'm really glad that you guys didn't pay off this one character. I'm like, that never came to mind. In the moment, we're just oh yeah, no, we're going to make this story as bad as we possibly can.
What plans? What the fuck plans? You think I know what the hell I'm talking about right now?
No, it's one of those we call it an improv audio drama meets real play, and it very much comes through. Like, I try to cut out a lot of not all of it, just because I like some of that banter between the hosts, but it's one of those, like, if we could dive into a scene where we are basically embodying our characters and making dumb voices, then that's what I want to do with it. And because of that, like I said, just to go back to what I started this explanation, that's where it gets that audio drama feel. So yeah, if you're not big into the real plays, things like that, just give it a shot. The storyline we have up now, the Pillars of Justice, Act 1 is pretty light and easy to get into.
Yeah, say, and here I was thinking, what the hell are we, like, because I have no plans. I was like, hey, anybody want to come on the show? What are you talk about? Whatever the hell you want to. You want to pimp the shit out of yourself,
And that wasn't even my intention either.
I mentioned I don't really listen to that one of your shows. And then it turned into here's the sales pitch on that show.
It just becomes a reflex when you've been doing it long enough.
It took me almost 3 years to be able to put into words what the hell this show is. And I'm still at
Oh, and then you changed it.
Well, it's still the gist of the show is it's me, audio blogging stuff, because there's still kind of the jackass of the week in there. So there's the news parody, talking shit, and then there's the podcast recommendations. None of these things go well together. I do this because these are just the things that I do, and I enjoy doing them, and I just have to pull the shit out of my head at a time. But it's really weird because when I do all of the things like this that I do on this show, it really means that I can't fit into any category if I just like, oh, what category are you in on? Is there a dumb shit category on iTunes? Is there I don't know what the fuck I'm doing category on iTunes? Somebody give me that one. Because I'm too much of, I'm a little bit of everything, which is always kind of how I describe myself. I'm that jackass of all trades, master of none, where I can do a million things. And so what do I do on this show? I do a million things, and I don't do any one of them especially well, but I do a million things. And for some reason, people like you listen to me. I think you might need your head examined, but hey, and you even volunteered to come.
I'm not going to argue that point. But yeah, it was one of those, I think it was, fuck, I'm going to blank on this. Pizza Podcaster. He kept retweeting your stuff and.
Oh yeah. And he's awesome. And I seriously wish he had kept going. He kept going in and out and in and out. And it was interesting listening to him.
Yeah. And it was one of those, like, that is definitely not my style of podcast. Like I said, when I first started out, I listened to maybe like 3 or 4 a week, as opposed to like the 30 a week I listen to now.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it was one of those, like, I have no idea what the hell this is. It was just some guy who was looking for a guest to come on to talk about things, podcasting in general. I'm like, sure, I had never done an interview. I could do this. But of course I was like, okay, well, I'll listen to your show first. And it was one of those, just very stream of consciousness kind of podcasts. And when he started pimping out yours on Twitter, like, hey, listen to this guy, he's also funny. I'm like, sure, why not? And just the humor came across. So that's what got me hooked.
The assortment of podcast friends I've made and how I've made them is quite funny. In the wide range of people that I associate with, I mean, it's a good reflection on me and my personality, but the idea that I am friends with like you, and then like Mike Jolitz and Chris the Mole Man, and then like Emily Prokop and Heather Welch. I'm like, wait, what? Whole big string of perverts, nerds, like the guys from PRL, all nerds. And then like Emily and Heather, the sweetest people in the world. And then like, whoosh, and the whole, hashtag nice guy Adam. And depends on who I'm talking to. Apparently I managed to offend one of the Epic Film guys today. So,
oh shit.
I had some, and damn, I won't repeat what I said, but it basically amounted to kind of shitting on how Nick is so negative on stuff.
I thought everyone knew that, though.
Yeah, but I don't know. For me, sometimes he's just so negative, and it's like, dude, you're like maliciously negative sometimes. Long and short of it, he was shitting on A Christmas Story. And he was like epically shitting on A Christmas Story. And it's just one of those, dude, sometimes you're just negative to a point of being rude. You know, there's negative for comedy's sake, but then sometimes you're just rude about the way you shit on things that other people enjoy. And it's kind of, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like his hatred of some things he doesn't like is bordering on disrespectful.
Fair.
Yeah, so
yeah, that's something that I tried to do with the other show with Sometimes Geek, is that when I was doing reviews every week, it was like, yeah, I don't like this game, but that's where the whole trademark of it's just not for me came in, because I'm like, I understand why these people like this. I don't, but that doesn't necessarily mean I need to shit all over it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, there's a big difference between saying, hey, this is not for me. I don't like this, but, you know, I see why other people do. And, you know, whenever I will, like, when I do reviews, whenever I do, you know, features for podcasts, I'll say, hey, I dig this show, but it's definitely not for everyone. You know, even yours. I mean, you have a fairly dry video game show.
Mm-hmm.
You aren't the bunch of video game nerds, you know, sitting in a circle, you know, inside jokes. And it's for the most part a very straightforward show. And that may not be the video game show for everyone. And Ice in the Face, dear God, it takes a certain type of person to listen to Ice in the Face, or to Mike Jolitz, or whatever the hell show Chris the Mole Man is doing at the moment. God, dude changes his show every 2 months. But you know, but some of these shows, it's not necessarily for everyone. And like, I've featured a handful of podcasts about podcasting because I listened to them. You know, I featured the Audacity to Podcast in part because Daniel J. Lewis had just had a baby. You know, like Dave Jackson gets into the Hall of Fame. I'm featuring him on that episode because that's a good timing, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, like I feature shows that I enjoy. I talk about things I enjoy, but I absolutely acknowledge that there's things that other people are not going to like. It's not necessarily for everyone. Not everyone is going to want to listen to What's the Tea with RuPaul. I will. I will talk about both Hurricane Bianca movies. Most people are probably not going to want to watch a movie that is like 75% drag queens, but it's a fun movie. So I'm going to talk about it, damn it. Yeah, but even if I don't like something, or if there is something in a show that I don't like, which I will say, hey, I'm not a fan of this thing that they do, I'm not going to just shit all over them, and I'm not going to be disrespectful about it, because what's the point of that? And that's the same reason I don't leave like negative reviews. Granted, I don't leave a lot of reviews for things in iTunes or Apple Podcast or whatever the hell they want you to call it. But I'm not going to leave a negative review. If I can't at least give you a 4, I'm not going to go in and shit all over your show. It's like, I'm going to leave positive feedback.
See, I'll give like a 2 or a 3 if I think it warrants it. Like, if it's been around for a little while, the sound quality hasn't really changed, because I'll hop around and check others out. I'll just be like, yeah, but I'll leave that text review saying, not really my style of podcast, could use a little work on this, or this, just so that way, if they go and see it, it's one of those, they can make a change and hopefully improve their show. Like, I don't care if people give me a negative review. I've actually pretty fortunate on mine, where I think the lowest I've gotten is a 4. But it's like, yeah, if you don't like the show, let me know why you don't, because it might be something that I'm looking at changing anyway.
Yeah, I think my lowest is a 4, and it basically amounted to, he didn't understand that it was very stream of consciousness sort of thing. He thought that it was like the audio blogginess of it was more of a formatted storytelling portion. I was like, fuck no, dude. I was like, I listened to 3 episodes. I didn't. It's like, I felt like the storytelling needed to embellish more. Like, this is real. This is shit falling out of my head. And it's like, it really just kind of amounted to, and it's like, okay, he didn't like the show. Fine. It wasn't real. And it was still a 4. But I felt like his criticism was more harsh than a 4. But it just amounted to, it's like, yeah, you just don't understand the nature of the show, as this is very stream of consciousness. I have little to no plan going into most days unless something occurred, like breaking my toe, that gives me something to bitch about. Like, yeah, I'm sick. Guess what? I'm talking about being sick for a few days. Why? Because I have nothing else going on in my life. I'm stuck in bed.
Well, that also is, I mean, expected when you're doing a damn podcast every day. Like, I was thinking about NAPODPOMO and talking to my wife about it. It's like, yeah, this seems kind of fun, but I have enough trouble getting together like 4 or 5 stories that I actually want to cover for Sometimes Geek. I don't know how I would do that every day.
That's where the nature of this show makes it easier to do, but it also means I have to come up with something every day in general. I mean, really, if you just spread the news out, because, I mean, you're basically condensing a week of news, maybe, or reviews or things. Yeah. You could theoretically, like, oh, I'm going to review this game on this day and this on Tuesday and then this news on this day. And that's where, kind of at the suggestion of Paul Chomo from Varmints, where he was like, why are you even going to try and do a regular show for the week? Yeah. If you're doing a show every day. And it's kind of turned into splitting up the segments into the rest of the week and doing recommended listening on Fridays, because follow Friday, and sticking the jackass of the week and the news segments on Thursday closer to the end of the week, and just the rest of it being just me yakking. But because I do so much random crap here, I can just kind of do whatever. And like, what am I talking about today? Like yesterday, what did I do? I talked about basically a recap of from me being sick last week and then breaking my toe this week. And okay, yeah, I can almost sing in the car again, and I can almost walk again. And like, oh yeah, today I discovered that my sneakers hurt my toe like a son of a bitch. Doing the daily stuff, it's also fun because I just say, fuck it. Now, oh, kids come in the room. Oh, well.
It's content.
Yep. It's like, I got 30 days to fill. I don't mind my boys invading for that.
No, see, like if I were to do Sometimes Geek Daily, I'm already condensing like 5 or 6 stories down to about 15 minutes. I think that if I were doing daily episodes, they'd be like a minute and a half, 2 minutes long, just to be like, hey, this happened. Okay, bye.
Here's your Sometimes Geek Daily update. And this is coming out. See you tomorrow.
It would just turn it into that old, like, that old cartoon, The Critic. It's like, yeah, I played this game. It sucks. That's it.
Exactly. Just come on. It stinks. Good night, everybody. But still, I mean, at the same time, you could expand, or you could just do that. It's like, it stinks. Good night. It's like suddenly your credits are longer than the actual content of the show.
And like trying to think of Rolling Misadventures, if I were to do that daily when it's already released every 2 weeks, it's like, yeah, I would maybe put out like a scene a day, if that, and I would have to record an entire month's worth beforehand.
Yeah, that's one of those you'd have to pre-record everything and release it all very slowly.
Yep. Just do like a word a day.
Yeah, so not that we haven't name dropped your shows enough already.
Unintentionally.
And it's just kind of in the point of conversation, because who are you and where are you from? Who is your daddy and what does he do?
It's not a tumor.
It's not a tumor.
I am Derek from the Sometimes Geek Podcast, a weekly short form video game editorial with episodes kept to around 15 to 20 minutes, mainly with the intention that I'm cutting out all the fluff so you can come in, get all your gaming news, and spend more time in your real life or playing video games, however you want to spend that free time. I also host Rolling Misadventures, which is an improv real play audio drama. So yeah, stories are just kind of insane and crazy, and pretty much everything in that can and will go wrong. I haven't been doing this one enough to be able to give you the main pitch like that.
Like I said, it took me 3 years to get on this one. So,
but with that show, with Rolling Misadventures, stories are played out over 2 acts. So we always have a brand new setting for you every month. So if you're not digging on our really bad Victorian era playhouse soap opera, then you can hop into a Anchorman-inspired news story the following month.
That definitely sounds worth listening. I think I need to actually check it out now. It's not 10 weeks of the same 5 people, it's like, roll for charisma.
Yeah, we did a Victorian era playhouse with really bad, offensive British accents. We did like I said, an Anchorman, behind the news desk inspired story. We've done a Goosebumps story. The one we're doing right now is a superhero drama. So yeah, it's got all sorts of stuff. And I am joined by 2 awesome co-hosts, Charles from NoCo.fm, which is a online Colorado-based radio station that has 12 podcasts that he helps produce. And then I'm also joined by Megan from Ono Lit Class.
Yeah, and that's another one I've heard. I forget where I heard them on. I think I heard them on Best Forevers, and I was like, I need to listen to this. And it's one of those on the list of things I need to listen to. And so
it was on my list as well. And oddly enough, I started listening to Megan and RJ and Ono Lit Class about 2 weeks before I threw it out to Facebook saying, hey, I'm doing this show. Who wants to join? And just based on, serendipity, Megan hits me up saying, hey, this sounds fun. Let's do this. I'm like, okay, I just fell in love with your show. This is weird.
You never know, things just come together. What you put out a message and then somebody responds, and the next thing you know, you're, co-hosting 2 Sunshine Summits.
Exactly.
You're the lead pimp for this event. Then again, that's my thing. Again, I always say I'm a better pimp than prostitute. I'm good at selling other people's stuff than I am at my own. So, speaking of pimping, the one bit of prep I asked was for you to have a recommendation, aside from, unless you want to go with Ono Lit Class, which is perfectly fine since we just totally name dropped them out of just conversation.
No, see, I totally slipped them in with that just so I could talk about another
that
show.
Works.
The one that I always recommend is You, Me, and Duffy. It is a mostly weekly. They have been kind of stumbling over the schedule just because adults and life. But it is a weekly news and just general geek topics, talking about Marvel films to a lady having sex and now trying to marry a ghost, just all sorts of random stuff. It's absolutely hilarious. And all the guys there are just some of the best people I've met in podcasting. So You, Me, and Duffy.
Okay. And off the top of your head, where is that one located?
You can find it on any podcatcher of your choice or by searching youmeandduffy.com.
Okay. Whew, this is see, dear listener, you're getting a severely abridged version of this conversation. Just throwing that out there. Technical difficulties aside, and the 20-ish minutes you're gonna get. We've been on the line for over an hour. You missed, in the how you mentioned the not to get too technical and geeky. We did that for 40 minutes.
Oh, so. Yeah, totally did. You guys were, oh crap, we didn't record any of this.
You were spared the super geeky stuff where we were, geeking out over microphones and recording software. But thank you for coming on, Derek, and thank you for reminding me, because I get so caught up in just life and doing stuff and trying to get out these daily shows that just hey, I wanted to have people on gets kind of lost in the mix somewhere. Even wanting to do this with stuff.
I always feel kind of bad about that. It's I don't want to be pushy, and pretty much the only time I talk to anyone is podcasting, so I always feel kind of bad about it. But it was something that I was like, you know what? You're doing the NAPODPOMO. I want to hop on, give you any support I can. So thank you for having me on and to just shamelessly plug myself.
Plug away. And there is no shame in plugging on this show, because it saves me, because I plug and I promote, and I probably spend more time doing that for others than I do for myself. That's what I do here. I done pimped out everybody else's stuff. So, but again, you can catch Derek on Rolling Misadventures and Sometimes Geek, and you can subscribe here in all of the places. You know all of the places, and of course at odddadoutpodcast.com. And until tomorrow, because you know what, I'm still doing this shit all month. Thank you, and good night.